This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, I'm Rekha Sharma, and I played Landry on Star Trek Discovery. You are listening to The Edge on Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of The Edge, Trek FM's dedicated podcast to the Star Trek Discovery. I am your host, Amy Nelson, and with me this week, Patrick Devlin. Patrick, so glad to be back with you.
Yes, I missed you last week. Haley did a great job filling in, but, you know, I like podcasting with you and talking Discovery, so I missed you last week. Yeah. How was your time off, though?
It was great. I went to Paley Fest in LA and got to see Alex Kurtzman and Sonequa Martin Green. Let's see if I can remember them all. Doug Jones, Anthony Rapp, Mary Chifo, Shazad Latif, Wilson Cruz, and yeah, there was another producer there. I didn't quite know exactly who she was, and she said two words. Oh, Tig Notaro was there.
Oh, nice.
And it was her actual birthday, and so all of us in the audience, we sang happy birthday to her.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was pretty good. And I just love listening to them and hear their fun stories and just how much they enjoy working together. So it was really good.
It's okay. I already told the listeners you were off for Section 31 doing reconnaissance on the Discovery crew. You don't have to act like you'll enjoy it. I mean, they already know. I told them last week. I figured we could trust our listeners. They're stand-up, honest people.
Okay. All right.
No, it sounds like a lot of fun, though.
It was, and got to meet some of the Star Trek fans in LA because they have a LA fan group that meets up, and so got to meet some new people there and pictures. And one of the listeners, Christian Alonso, hi Chris, got to meet him and see him again because he's been to STLV. Anyways, so it was just a really good time and got a pretty cheap flight. And so after the panel, went to the airport and flew home and went to work the next day. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
fast turnaround.
It was. Well, we're not here to discuss Paley Fest, even though it was really fun. We are here to talk about episode 11, Perpetual Infinity. So I just wanted to know real quick, Patrick, what did you think of this episode?
It was good. I thought it was all right. I thought it was a good episode. I didn't think it was the greatest episode of the season. I didn't think it was the worst episode of the season. I think it moved the story along well, and I think that's what its purpose was. And if we're just judging it by moving the story along, then it did its job well. But, I thought it was good. There's not much more I can say about that.
All right. Well, I really enjoyed this episode. I was very surprised because last week, I guess it was a little fortuitous that I wasn't on because I wasn't enamored with the Red Angel. So this one, I was really surprised that I enjoyed it. So there was just so much to talk about and all of the callbacks to previous episodes in the season and just the progression of the story, really, you're right. It just moved it along. And so I wanted to talk about the very first scene because it's exactly how I felt was when Michael Burnham wakes up and has the realization that really was her mom. because at the end of the Red Angel, I still was not sure. I'm like, no, they said that the DNA match was 100%. I really thought it was Michael. And so to see it being played out on screen, this Michael Burnham didn't believe that it was her mother. That was my feelings. And so I just was hooked in right from the very beginning. I just thought that scene was amazing, and how she was so incredulous and processing. Like, you could see her wheels turning in her head. Like, this is my mother. I need to go to her. And I just love that scene in sickbay.
Yeah, it was a great scene. It was good. My problem is that they used lies in the episode before to get you there. But for that scene by itself, the standalone scene, yeah, it was good. And it was exactly how you would expect Michael Burnham to react. However, I didn't buy it. I didn't believe it wasn't the mother. I know a lot of people had said, well, maybe it was the mother and Michael, and maybe it was, Michael all the other times except for this time, or there was like a million excuses on how Michael was still going to be the Red Angel. Mm-hmm. But I just wrote it off as they lied to us for an entire episode and then showed us it was the mother, and it's going to be the mother, and it was the mother.
Yeah. And, because I was so concerned about how they were saying that it's 100% match. And then they use this mitochondrial DNA sequencing and how it passes through the mothers. And I don't know if I really bought that, but it was an answer. Now, how good the answer was, it was at least an answer.
Yeah. I guess it's an answer. Okay. I don't know. Whatever. Fine. I'm glad it was the mother anyway. So it doesn't really matter to me because I didn't want it to be Michael to begin with. So the fact that it was someone else, even though it's a very close relative to Michael, I enjoyed the fact that it was. And the actress they chose to play the mother is an actress I absolutely love.
Yes. And let's get to that because Sonia Sohn, she's brilliant. I bought it. And what I loved, and we talked about it off air, her range of emoting was incredible because she was at the beginning being so hardened, she was so mission oriented, and then at the end, when she gives all of her love and her support towards Michael Burnham and gives Michael what she needs, and it's like, you're my baby girl, and all of that. This is why I'm doing it. Like, she was so cold at the beginning, right? She just was hard. And it's like, I've seen you die a million times and I'll see you die a million more. The bigger picture is the mission. And then to switch at the end, I thought was brilliant.
It was great. I loved it. And yeah, we did. Because I remember her from other shows like The Wire and stuff. And
loved her in The Wire.
So did I. Probably my favorite of her performances. Obviously, this was only one episode. That was a series. So you can't compare the two in terms of which one's better. But I really enjoyed her. And I really like the fact that she does have this range and that she does go through these emotions through this episode. And like you said, when she started off, some people were looking at it. It's like, why is she so mean to her daughter? But I kind of picked up on the fact that because she's watched her daughter die thousands and thousands of times, every time she comes back, she doesn't always succeed. She has to go back a little bit farther and then succeed. So, she had to have missed a few times. No one's perfect. And so you have to be able to, as hard as she's being at the moment, it's a facade to protect herself. It's really not even to protect Michael. It's to protect herself because when she does fail, it's like losing your daughter all over again every single time.
Yeah. And I cannot imagine that pain and that, she has to do that over and over again. And how cold is she going to be in this attempt,
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of her being cold, and not towards Michael, her reaction to Pike was fantastic.
Right?
You're just a ghost to me. Like, be gone. It was great.
Yes.
And she's like, I can tell you more about your future, but you're not going to like it, which is a great callback to, TOS.
Yep.
Because we know what happens. So.
Yeah, I thought just the choice of that actor, because I think that she can look so cold and hardened and rough exterior and then just switch that to be warm and compassionate. I just thought Sonia Sohn did it amazing, and I was so glad to have her. And I tweeted at her. I said, welcome to the Trek family, but she didn't like it yet.
That's all right. She's a busy woman.
Yeah. So talking about Dr. Burnham, we get to see these over 900 mission logs. And how do you think that helped Dr. Burnham's character?
Well, it shows her main motivation in life now because there is nothing left. You know, we see her mission log where Earth is, she's on Earth and it's destroyed. And so we end up seeing why she is what she is, because if she doesn't succeed, she keeps ending up right back there. Right. What I find more interesting about them than where they bring her character is where they bring the story, in that we find out that she's doing these time incursions and they're not creating alternate universes. They're actually just changing the universe she's currently in. Because if it was alternate, she would snap back to the wrong universe anyway, right?
Right.
So, because they already explained that she is tethered to a point 950 years in the future. And so when she comes back and changes something, we've always been led to believe that causes a different timeline completely, which is not, it's a complete split, so that each version of that would exist. That's not how they're explaining it in this show. They're explaining it that changes, everyone's memories kind of change, and the outcome all changes.
I didn't even think about that. Which is, okay, so now it's making sense. When I was reading someone's comment on the Babel conference for postcards, and they were like, they need to talk to the temporal, who's in Enterprise? Oh, the temporal police.
Yeah, it's, Daniels.
Yeah, and so you're saying that she's coming back and literally changing that timeline.
Correct. So Spock goes back, right, and creates the Kelvin timeline, right? So now you have Prime and Kelvin, and then you have the mirror universe somewhere off of Prime. But that's not what's happening here. She's going back and changing events, and that timeline is continuing with the changes.
Huh. I wonder why that is. That's interesting.
Well, we'll talk about it later when we talk about Leland controlling the AI, but it goes to a bigger issue that this episode actually has that might be a fun thing to explore, but it's an issue that they're kind of creating themselves that I'm dying to see how they get out of. Mm-hmm. But so with this, we know that since the timeline itself is changing instead of splintering, which we've throughout all of Star Trek we've always seen, except for actually with Enterprise. Daniels actually does the same thing. He goes back, he changes things, and then he brings Archer to the future. As if nothing were to change. If Archer dies, this is the future. If you don't die, this is the future. So it's one single timeline that changes in Enterprise. And now apparently in Discovery, they're following with the same single timeline theory.
Okay.
So I find it interesting. And it brings up a lot of problems for the crew and the writers and just problems.
Well, it is that timey-wimey business.
Yes.
So when Dr. Burnham was talking to Pike and he was like, what's up with these red signals? And she's like, I don't know about anything you're talking about. Do you believe her?
I don't.
Okay,
I don't.
Why?
It's not her fault. I don't because probably because I don't trust the writers. And they focus so much on Michael's reaction that to me it looks like Michael knows she's lying.
Oh, I did not read it that way. Okay.
That to me, that's just, I feel like that's where they're headed with it. Nothing she did or Pike said really gave away that she's lying. Mm-hmm. But Michael's reaction said to me, oh, wait a second. And it may not be like, just because I know how they write this show. So it just seems to me like they're making it that she's going to be lying.
Okay, so I didn't pick up that she was lying from Michael. I picked up when she quickly changed the subject. And I was like, why would you change the subject so quickly? I mean, if she really doesn't know how to stop the AI, then maybe investigating these red signals would be a clue and it might be worth her time.
Oh, possibly.
And so then she was like, well, I don't know about that. Get back to the point. And I was like, oh, what are you trying to hide? That was my only clue. But then I was like, man, how does she not know about him? I mean, she knows about everything else.
Yeah, she's lying.
Okay. All right. So we're on the same page with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If she's not lying, then this has been a whole terrible setup to believe that these two are somehow connected.
Yeah.
I mean, we do see a big red signal when she gets sucked back, right?
Is that a signal?
I don't
just
know.
thought that was the tether.
But we'll see, because just because they happen simultaneously to the crew doesn't mean she didn't make 7 different jumps and get sucked back at the same moment.
And that's what caused it. Okay.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Because she's every time. So if she did it once, they'd see 1. If the second time, they'd see the 2. The third time, they'd see the 3. By the time they hit here's the problems. By the time they hit the 7th one, she's done it 7 times. Their memory is being changed according to the way the universe is supposed to be, not the way it's actually happening. Because they've now gone through this event 7 separate times, but they're only going to remember the last one. So they're going to see 7 tethers in the sky. Now it could be a ridiculous theory because the tether is probably not big enough red signal. My only point is it's possible.
Right. Oh, goodness. This is giving me a headache. I really did like when Dr. Burnham was talking to Giorgio. It just was so, again, Michelle Yeoh, Sonia Sohn. I wish I could have seen and been there while they were, acting that out. But I loved that she knew who Giorgio was. And Giorgio was like, I'm Mir, I'm Taryn, so you don't know who I am. And she's like, yeah, I know who you are. And they go sort of through this, put up your dukes type of thing. And then in the end, Jillian's like, take care of Michael. Like she entrusts Michael, her daughter, the one that she's doing all of this for, to Philippa Giorgio.
Well, yeah, but I think she has no choice because she knows that Giorgio's going to do it. She just told her a minute earlier, "Oh, you'll lay your life down for her. I know it. I've seen it. I've seen you do it. You can lie to me all you want. You can lie to everyone else here. We all know you're full of it. Or I know you're full of it because I've been going back and forth and I have seen you do it. So she can say, I trust you with it because it doesn't really matter. Giorgio's going to do it anyway."
Yeah.
And this goes back to something me and Haley were talking about last week. Giorgio really loves Michael as a daughter. Mm-hmm. So, because there was some debate over whether Giorgio was just manipulating her or not. And I didn't really know where to fall on the line, but now I'm definitely on the not just manipulating her side.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this episode. And things that have led up to this have pointed in that direction, but you never really can trust Giorgio. But now you have someone who's been in the future and seen it play out already, telling you, no, you're not just manipulating her, whether you want to feel that way or not. You actually care.
Yeah. So I think, Giorgio sort of learned a little bit about herself as well. I loved the scene. It reminded me because I have a mother and a stepmother, and just, when they sort of come together for the good of the child, it warms my heart because I have 2 great mothers in my life, thankfully.
Oh, one of them's not from the mirror universe and wasn't an emperor?
Well, I kid that I'm Cinderella because I literally have a stepmother and 2 stepsisters. And at one time, I considered them to be evil because they made me do all their chores. I'm not making this stuff up.
So, one of my favorite movies of all time is actually your biography.
Yes, it is. Cinderella, Cinderella, night and day, it's Cinderella. Yeah. I've been singing it my whole life as I'm scrubbing the toilet and doing the dishes.
That sucks.
But now that we are all adults, I do. I have 2 wonderful mothers.
That's awesome.
So one other thing before we move off of Dr. Burnham, I just loved seeing her character and this development that we get from her. But then it also has this parallel storyline with Dr. Culber when he's explaining to Michael, she is different. She has experienced something that no one else has done, this time warp experience that probably has changed her. And you don't really know exactly who she is. You think you know. You have a memory of what you think you know. But she is different. And I loved how they just laced together those 2 storylines, and I'm sort of feeling like we're getting this identity theme throughout the season.
Oh, absolutely. We have it with him. We have it with Tyler. We have it with the mother now. We have it even with Spock and Burnham themselves.
Exactly.
Not the same degree or not in the same way, but still they're all trying to figure out who they are and what they are and what Discovery is and what its mission really is and everything else. And So it's absolutely tied together, those two. And really, Kohlberg could have been talking to Stamets when he had that same exact conversation, by the way.
Exactly.
And it would have gone exactly the same way. But I found it interesting that they made him reinstated as Doctor for this episode and for this conversation.
Were you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I just found it interesting that they chose this moment to do it. I think it's a good time to do it. I guess I'm just surprised that they thought it was a good time to do it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I also felt it was a really good time because we saw him struggle and, talk to Admiral Cornwell and get his little counseling session. And, I know for me personally, like when life is just crappy, I just go to work and I have to focus on work, and that gives my brain a chance to like stop thinking and just focus on work. And then I don't have to worry. And then, work gets done and it all comes crashing back on. Like, yeah, I get it. I still have to deal with it. But I sort of felt like, when Kohlberg said, I chose to come back because I wanted to help. And it's like, yeah, just throw yourself into your work. And I think a lot of people end up doing that sometimes too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think people do it. But I also think the conversation where she says to him, if to walk your path, to make a new path, you must walk it. I believe he believes this is part of that too. Like, I'm still a doctor. Like, he's starting to realize I'm still a doctor. I'm still this. I'm still that. Last episode, he realized that he still had feelings for Stamets more because he was jealous when he saw Giorgio coming on to him. Right. So he's starting little by little, he's starting to feel himself out again. And this is just the next step in that progression, and it makes perfect sense the way they wrote this to this point. I just find that I like the fact, I don't find it odd, I like the fact that they brought this story and that story to this point at this time, right? So that he's starting to be a doctor again as the mother comes back, and he, like he said, he uses that as his reasoning, partly as his reasoning. I want to help, so I reinstated myself, or I got reinstated. So great, because it makes sense that he would be ready as this started, and that was the little bit of push he needed to get over the edge. Yeah. So I expect to see a lot more growth from him. Not so much wallowing in I don't know who I am anymore, like we had for a couple episodes, but now really more and more finding out who he is inside his own head moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, walking the path, creating who he is now.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Excellent. Okay. So let's get to this whole Leland control AI business, because this is now sort of the crux of where the season is going. And we can just go in any order, but I want to ask, and I was really surprised because I missed it on the first watch. So on my rewatch, Leland claims that he saw Gabrielle Burnham's dead body, after the Klingon attack. So do we believe his claim that Dr. Burnham is a clone?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't even entertain the idea.
Oh, okay. So whatever Leland say, he's just a lie.
Yeah,
okay.
He at that point, he is control. He is the AI. Nothing he says needs to be believable.
Okay. I need to remember that because I'm like, oh, what if he's right? And so, I need to just not believe him.
No, I mean, other people are going to believe that he isn't always lying. I just don't believe anything that comes out of the man's mouth because he's not him.
Right.
Nothing in he's basically the first
Borg. Oh, yes. Okay.
No, this was after he was shot with
That's right.
The nanites into his neck. So this could be the creation of the Borg, by the way, which would make no sense at this point, but...
Yeah, we're... Okay, we'll get there.
But,
so, yeah, go ahead.
No, so I don't believe anything he says because as far as I'm concerned, he's talking for the computer. So he's going to say whatever he needs to say to get the data he needs.
Yeah.
The other possibility is that he did see a dead body and they are using his memories, but that doesn't make it a clone because, again, if you keep going back in time, the events repeat themselves. Mm-hmm. So she could have left, come back to try and fix it, failed, she dies, but the real her is actually the one jumping.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think that is the case, but that is a possibility.
Right.
If he wasn't lying. But a clone seems ridiculous to me.
Okay.
So
I love how they are writing Leland because his logic is so brilliantly warped. He's claiming, right, to prevent the data from the sphere that he doesn't want control to have it. So he's mixing the right amount of truth in his statements to manipulate, his defense of his commands and his decisions. And so he wants to get the data and not Discovery so that he can protect it from control and thus preventing AI. So it's like this little spider web of truths and lies to try and manipulate and justify. And so I can see why people on the Section 31 ship are believing it, because when he says it, well, I want to protect it from control. We need to have it so that control doesn't have it. That makes total sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because they don't know what we know. Which
right.
I don't know how he got into that contraption without someone picking him up, but that's another story. Because he got shot in the eyes, and then in the end of the last episode, he got shot in the eyes, right?
Yeah.
With the little thing spiked him in the eye. And then when we come back to him in this episode, he's like on like a hospital bed stand-up thingy, like strapped down. So how do you get there?
Well, the control could have beamed him there.
Okay. I'll buy that. So, but whatever. So now we see that, but apparently nobody else happens to walk in this room at any point during this process when control is changing its images to look like all the different characters on the show, which was kind of cool as it was explaining to him the plan. And so as far as they're concerned, Leland is just being Leland, but Giorgio realizes there's something off.
Right.
Because she says, well, you're awfully resolute today.
Yes.
And he's like, well, time's call for it. And she kind of like, all right, filed that away. But she didn't really, she didn't confront him any farther than that one little line at that point of the episode.
So we saw the control, I guess we call it control, take on the different forms and saying, well, human skin is difficult for me to replicate and blah, blah, blah. So are we assuming, well, this is what I'm assuming, and you can totally tell me I'm wrong. Leland is dead, and this is just merely a hologram.
No.
No?
No, I think Leland is alive because it shot something into a body. That's what we saw. Okay,
so when Leland is, and he's got the contraption like around his head, the first time we see him, and it's telling Leland, which I believe is the real Leland, I am taking on Saru and all the different characters. And then that's when I assumed that it took Leland's character. So this hologram took Leland's character and killed him off.
I don't think so.
Okay.
We see the things go into his neck.
Uh-huh.
The spikes go into his neck. And then we see nanites injected into him.
Okay.
So I believe they are controlling Leland's body.
Okay, so it still is Leland's body.
You're right. Leland, it's not his mind interacting here. I don't know if it's destroyed or if they can fix it, whatever. That's irrelevant to this. It is completely detached from the rest of his body at this point. And his body is walking and talking and doing all Leland-like stuff. But control is speaking for him and causing him to do all this. He's basically, his body is a puppet.
Okay, so that sort of makes sense, like why the computer was doing all the different holograms and realizing I can't be a hologram. It's not good enough. I need your body. That's why I infected you. So you are going to do my bidding and insert nanoprobes. And now I have control of Leland. Okay, so then there must be, because throughout the episode, then at the end, it's like he needs to, and I'm sorry I'm using Borg terminology, but he needs to rejuvenate. So that's why he goes back to his quarters and is sitting down and getting that.
Yeah, well, that's why I said earlier, I made a joke, but like this is like the beginning of the Borg. Because they're using all the same stuff the Borg does.
Yeah.
It's nanites that infect them. You could see little robotic things on his face at times.
The veins.
Yeah, like it's just...
I love it. It makes my TNG heart happy. So stop knocking it.
It's just so, okay. It's not that it's bad. It's just like, just make them Borg or make them not Borg. Come on, don't do this half thing. The whole premise of the episode kind of gets thrown off for me anyway, because, and this is the one problem I had with the episode. So we already spoke about how she goes back and changes the timeline, but the timeline doesn't split. It's always the same timeline. Mm-hmm. So even if, let's just pretend we were able to take the data, right? Leland was obsessed with getting the data, right? Because he was the AI itself. Control needs the data to create basically what Leland is right now. Leland is AI.
Ish.
Well,
yeah.
no, I think AI exists. I think it was sitting on his ship. They didn't catch it in the scans, so it's already there. The AI already exists. Control never was destroyed. That didn't happen. We see that on the Section 31 ship. So now, they're obsessed with getting the data from the sphere. Why? The data's already here.
Where?
In the Section 31 ship. All the information for the... Yes, that's why he exists.
No.
Yes, he didn't need the data from the sphere to make him.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Okay. So we know that Arium got infected. Okay. So that's the beginning, right? So that infection, but it still needed Arium's body. An AI doesn't need a body. So when they infect Leland, the AI control still needs a body. It needs the sphere data to become completely AI.
No, I don't believe so, because I believe it only needs the bodies now to fool the other people. Control is already thinking for itself. That's how it was able to stab him in the eye and then inject him with nanoprobes.
Because it wants the data.
Right, but why does it want the data? To create itself. It doesn't need to create itself because it's already in this timeline right now. What it needs to do is protect itself moving forward.
Okay, so maybe with that premise, then it is there to protect itself.
Maybe, but if we put the sphere data onto the suit and send the suit 950 years in the future where Control can't get it because there's no other existing technology, it doesn't change the fact that Control is existing right now in this timeline.
Right, which is the problem that we're facing now.
Correct.
Because they think that when they send the torpedoes, when Michael says, blow this place up to hell or whatever.
Right.
Like, they think they destroy it. Yeah, they didn't.
No, because they know they got that one last beam out and it took off. But
yeah.
So, right. So my only problem is, all of this is almost for nothing. Because even if it worked, I don't know why Leland was so obsessed with stealing the data. He didn't need it. Control had enough data. I mean, of course, they'd only want more information if they could get it.
Right.
But the idea that Control can't exist without...
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, because Control, it exists right now.
Right.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Got it.
Right, so we could still end up with the same outcome later because we're already too far. You got to go farther back to fix this problem.
Right. How far back?
At least before Aram gets infected.
Yeah. Before the sphere. And if you think about Dr. Culber put the sphere in their path. She says, I sent the sphere to you so that
Burnham,
you could protect the data. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh. I'm so sorry. Yes. Dr. Burnham.
Yes, she did, because all other attempts failed. So really we're living in what is basically turning out to be a deterministic universe, right?
It's going meta on me.
It's determined that the sphere is going to get taken. It's going to turn into Control. Control is going to turn into AI. AI is going to destroy the universe. Everything she's done to this point has failed in one way or another.
So, because the fact that we are watching this version, we know that it's not going to fail.
We would hope, but to this point, anyone looking on would have to assume this is a deterministic system, that no matter what you do, you're just, I can't even say it, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, another, I thought, just brilliant way that they wrote Leland /Control/AI. I don't even know what to call him anymore. Control Leland. Yeah. I love it how he, again, shows how manipulative. And I think this also goes to us, like how to not be manipulated, because he does it twice. And I think both times it's brilliant. So he is telling Tyler, it's like, well, we have to assume that Pike is not going to protect the data because he doesn't have enough knowledge and Control has more knowledge. And so you need to go get that data. And then Tyler has hesitation and doubt. And then he spins it and does this, well, we need to protect Michael Burnham, and uses that relationship that Tyler has with Michael specifically to manipulate. And then he does it the exact same way with Georgiou. And when Georgiou, and he's trying to convince her, well, Tyler didn't work out, so now I have to trust you. And you need to be powerful. And now you're only going to be the second most powerful woman because Gabrielle is out there, and tries to play that card. Doesn't really work. And then spins it right back to her relationship with Michael. And I just thought, man, he is the master manipulator. And I think that the writers have it exactly, because when you get manipulated, it's always because of a caring relationship that you have.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in Tyler and Georgiou for falling for it, but I understand it. I mean, especially Georgiou, I would have thought, although they are trying to prove to us that she really cares and it's not that she's just manipulating Michael. So I get why they're writing it. Again, I was just a little disappointed in their characters for doing it, but it makes sense. And it was great scenes. I like the other scene, though, with Tyler and Leland Control Al, but where he's like, oh, we can't be vague. And he's like, I'm not doing it. Is that vague enough for you?
Yeah.
That was so great.
I know. Yes, Tyler's having these little quip answers, quick-witted, when he's talking with Georgiou, and she's like, I'm going to trust you, but if you betray my trust, I'm going to hunt you down. And he's like, that was great. I died before. I know.
I've died before. All you're doing is saying I can enjoy the scenery.
Yes. Who says that? It's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a really good Tyler episode. Like, his scenes were really great.
Yeah, I like the way that they're writing him more.
Me too.
And another quick wit with the Leland and Tyler scene. And Tyler is like, well, we can, because he was saying, well, we can't assume that Pike is going to protect, and they aren't equipped to handle what's going to happen. And then Tyler's like, well, I have faith in the crew. I have faith in Discovery. And then Leland's like, faith is not a strategy. And I'm like, bam, that's right. Let's get a strategy in place. I thought that was great.
That is true.
I know. Faith is not a strategy. Oh.
But this is where we see it's coming to a head, where Tyler's going to have to start choosing sides. I mean, they're writing it so that they have an out, because when he defies Leland, he's not really defying Section 31, because Leland's not really Leland at the moment. But in Tyler's head, he's now having to choose. Do I trust Leland, or do I trust Discovery more? Mm-hmm. And we see that he starts the device and then turns it off. And then something else is said, and he kind of grips it again like, oh, I might have to turn this back on soon. So he's conflicted through all of this as well.
Okay. That was my only nitpick. This little tiny inch diameter, little round thing is supposed to cause all of this damage. It's supposed to transfer all the data from the sphere, which was huge. Irium couldn't even have it in her systems because there was such a quantity. And it's this tiny little device. It's supposed to, take and download and then make an explosion so big that it will destroy the tether. It was too small, too simple of a device. And maybe it just was a writing tool, I'm sure, but it didn't work for me.
Really? That's the complaint?
Yep, that's the complaint.
Not the fact that she's 900 years in the future with no other living organisms, but can breathe?
Okay, if everything on Earth died, do you think that we wouldn't have air?
Yeah, because trees make it. Eventually the air would go away.
Well, I didn't think about that.
So, yes.
So what was Tyler doing with that device? Was he starting the download process?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's why I think when it turned red, he was starting I believe he was starting the download, realized, I think I trust Discovery more and turned it off. And then, I can't remember the exact way the conversation went. Oh, he started to not trust Dr. Burnham, I believe. And that's why he gripped it again, like as to almost turn it on again.
Okay. Okay, so the combined efforts of Tyler's quick turn on, turn off, and then Giorgio placing it down on the planet, that created that they had 54% of the sphere data. Now, is that enough to continue, because we're not saying starting because AI already exists, is that enough to continue to create the AI that will cause the extinction of all sentient life?
That's dependent on what 54% of data was taken, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that was 54% of the sphere's data, right? They weren't just transferring over the AI data, I don't believe.
It was the entire sphere.
Right.
Data.
So
yeah.
We don't know what percentage of the sphere's data is about AI.
That's true.
It could only be 10%. They could have all of what they need. And the other 46% that they're missing could be, to them, gibberish, just other languages that existed. So, yeah, I think you could have 54% could be enough, or it could be none of what you needed. It could have gotten to none of those files yet.
Oh, that's true. So I was thinking about this. Now, on my computer, and I don't understand when it does and when it doesn't. Say, for example, I have a file and I move the file from my desktop into my Google Drive. Sometimes it will make a copy and put the copy in my Google Drive, and then I have to delete it off my desktop. Or sometimes I will move it and it's completely gone from my desktop and now on my Google Drive. Do you think that the 54% of the sphere data was downloaded and then erased from the Discovery computer, or do you think it was downloaded as a copy?
So the way they were explaining it, I would assume it was moved. I did computers. Moved means not copied.
Okay.
The physical file moved to the control. So we should see 54% of the data missing on Discovery.
Okay. So the data that was in the suit, was that the remaining 46%? Or is it the 100% and now Discovery computer is missing 54%?
Yeah, I don't know, because that was again, the way they explained this was they were going to take the data and move it to the suit so it no longer existed in Discovery.
Right.
So it would have to move simultaneously because we found out that the data itself is self-aware, and because it's self-aware, it protects itself. So if it thought it was being destroyed, it would stop you from destroying it, thus never allowing no plan to work because it would always be on Discovery's computer. Right? No, I'm not.
Okay.
So it would have to know that it's being moved and not know that it was going into the future, apparently, but being moved so that it was replicating itself there, but it wasn't really replicating itself. It was physically moving. So I don't know where any of these other percentages are. I don't know if anything is on the suit at this point.
Okay.
Because this was supposed to intercept the suit. Like, nothing was supposed to end up on the suit.
No, everything was supposed to be in the suit, 100% in the time crystal.
Yeah, well, that's how Discovery was doing it.
Yeah.
But Leland was cutting off that stream and directing it to him instead.
Oh.
That's how I read it.
Oh, okay.
So that nothing made it to the suit, but now...
Okay, so you're thinking nothing's on the suit. You've got 54% on the Section 31, and then the remaining 46 is still on Discovery because it didn't make it to the suit.
Right, that seems logical to me, except that this thing was turned on, turned off, turned on, turned off, and files were still moving at those points, right? So, I mean, it would seem that Discovery, by that explanation, Discovery was copying files and then deleting themselves.
Right.
Which are not moving them, but would make no sense because then it should protect itself.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that had my math brain and computer brain all haywire as I was trying to think, okay, what's going on with this data?
They explained it both ways is part of the problem. But the way I took it to mean, they were trying to tell us, was that the files were going, I take file A and I give it to you, and now I no longer have file A. I take file B, I give it to you, I no longer have file B. You know what I mean? So now some systems are set up that if you don't get 100%, it all reverts back to the original owner, which obviously they're not going with that scheme here. That's not how it's going to work, because he's obviously going to have 54% of the data, and the other 46 is in question as to where it is. The crystal's also gone, so...
Well, because it went back to the future.
It was shot first. Leland blew it up.
Wait.
When Leland shot through the suit, you could see the crystal shatter out of the back of the suit.
Wait, when who did what?
The really cool fight scene before he was fighting with Giorgio, and he was shooting the force field, and he finally broke through the force field. You see it shoot through the suit, and you see an explosion of glass out the backside of the suit.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Yeah, I didn't catch it the first time either. You remember because she gets shot and she yells? Well, that's because she can never come back. And they kind of talk about why she can never come back.
Oh, right. I was wondering why they were saying that.
Because there's no crystal.
Huh.
So the suit itself might still have infinite memory, not just the crystal itself. So it still might be on
the crystal.
Well, whatever it is, it shouldn't be there then because the crystal exploded.
Right. Okay. So the suit...
The other option is that little fragments of this data are all over the floor on ESOP 4.
Like Thanos, and he has to get the ring.
Yeah, except it'd be like 1 million of them. And you still only have 46% of the data.
I could get me a little time crystal necklace or a tiara.
Yes, you could.
All right, quest is on. So I totally, again, loved this episode because I just love the language in it. And we're going to go a little mathy here. So when they decide to not delete the sphere data. Oh, no, sorry. When they decide to delete the sphere data, and then Captain Pike's like, all right, proceed, let's do it. And then it gets the beep, beep warning signals, and he's like, what's going on? And then they go into this whole dialogue of, well, it's putting up firewalls and it's protecting itself and xeno encryption, and we need a linguistic key created from a language that hasn't been discovered. Okay, all of those words, totally math heart, made me happy.
You missed the biggest part of the math in that. They didn't say the language wasn't discovered yet. They said it was 1,000 centuries ago.
No, it was in the future from a language that hasn't yet been created.
Did they say that?
Yes.
Because they did say 1,000 centuries ago, which is 1,000 times 100, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Well, I listened to it multiple times, but I could be wrong, so I'll just leave it at that. Anyways, they needed a linguistic key and xeno encryption and firewalls and protecting, and I just literally, listeners, finished my cryptology unit in math. And we went through and were encoding and deciphering all these fun little codes and doing math, and my kids loved it. And then I got to see this on Discovery. It was just awesome. I'm like, aha, I love it. Yeah. Did you ever study cryptology or anything like that?
Yes, I did. Through math classes in college, I also did computer programming. So encryption was a big part of that. And I also did it with International Federation of Trekkies, or one of those I used to be part of one of the big fan groups.
Oh.
I actually was a couple of them, but there's a few that have like courses you can take, and cryptology is one of them, I did like 8 or 9 of those projects, which was pretty cool.
So, and as a side note, Ken Tripp worked in cryptology, and I need him to come talk to my class via Zoom or something, because when I went to dinner with him last time, he was just telling me all the cool stuff that he learned and like his training and all the stuff because he was working for the government. And so
codes are
anyways,
important.
Side note. Yeah. Anyways, I loved it. And then this is really another reason why I love this episode. Who knew that an Obol for Charon would be such an important role? Like, we just thought, oh, here's this random, astronomical sphere going through. It's trying to communicate. It doesn't want to die, but it's dying. And we were all, ooh, it warms our heart. And now look how important that one episode so long ago is playing such a major role. And I just love the writing that it's going back to those earlier episodes. I mean, that was episode 3, I think it was. Just amazing that we're seeing, I didn't hear any one prediction that this sphere data was going to play such an important role.
No. A few people said it might tell us who the Red Angel is, but that's not really the case. It's not, it has nothing to do with the Red Angel, except that the Red Angel's been trying to stop it. Now, what I find interesting is, like you said, we thought it was, this is so sweet and what a great story. It didn't die. And now we're all thinking, oh, I wish it died. Man, right. You're right. But I will preface that I did not realize that this story would continue out this way. I think in that episode or one right after, I said, I can't pick my favorite episodes till the end because you have no idea how these episodes are going to affect future episodes and storytelling. Yeah. So that episode, I don't remember how I rated it when I first saw it, but let's just say it was a 7. Well, it's a 9 or a 10 now, because it's clearly the impetus of the whole series, the season. Yeah. And so it's vitally important when before it was just, everyone was like, oh, we didn't get to see Spock again. We saw this instead. That was a real reaction from people. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, no, you didn't get to see Spock yet because this was literally going to drag out for the rest of the season. So it's kind of important to find this stupid little spear.
Yeah. So I just think, again, the writers are doing great with the storyboard, I guess people are calling it, and connecting all of these episodes together. I'm really enjoying it. I really liked this episode. One thing that I thought was very poignant, and I rewound and typed it out, just this quote and conversation. Dr. Burnham says, people think time is fragile, precious, beautiful, sand in an hourglass, all that. But it's not. Time is savage. It always wins. And then to have that come back where Spock says, respectfully, Dr. Burnham is incorrect. Time does matter. What happened before no longer exists. What happens next has not yet been written. We have only now. That is our greatest advantage. What we do now, here in this moment, has the power to determine the future. So I loved that. First of all, it reminded me of Dr. Burnham's quote, where time is savage. It reminded me of Generations and Dr. Zorn. But to your point, Patrick, that, it may be deterministic, but from this point, the last time that Jillian comes to us, that's going to be brand new. She doesn't know what's going to happen from here on out. She's known what's happened previously, but this timeline is not determined.
No, I agree. I agree with Spock. Mm-hmm. However, her words tell you that it's deterministic, which is what I was trying to say from an outsider's view. If you've seen all these attempts and it keeps happening, the same outcome keeps coming up, then it would be deterministic. The problem is I don't think she believes it. She says it, but I don't think she really believes it because she did stop coming back. If you can't change it, why would you keep putting this pressure on yourself?
Yeah. She
clearly knows it's not fully deterministic because she keeps saving Michael's life. She wouldn't be able to do that in a truly deterministic universe. Mm-hmm. I guess the truth is Michael is eventually going to die because everyone dies. But there is no point to trying to save this data from getting there if you know that no matter what you do, it's never going to matter and that it's always going to end up in the same way. So she might say it, but she doesn't truly believe it herself. And Spock is correct that you can change whatever happens from here out. His line also reinforces the fact that we are not splitting time, but the timeline itself is changing each time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we exactly to your point, we see that in Jillian's character arc because she starts off saying, you can't believe in hope anymore, only the bigger picture. But then by the end, she is saying all of her hopes and her desires to Burnham and saying, you are my daughter and I'm doing this for you and I will continue and I have always done this for you and I love you. Like, that is her arc for this episode.
Yeah. She's clearly a very conflicted character.
Yes.
I mean, and being stuck 950 years in the future by yourself would probably do a lot worse to you than what's happened to her. So she's holding it together pretty well. But I love the fact, and to bring that up, I meant to bring it up earlier and I forgot to say it. When she comes back and talks about that and she gets all kind of sappy with Michael, she mentions all the time she saw her read the book and reading it to Amanda and Sarah, pretending it was, Jillian and her husband, not, her biological parents, not her adopted parents. Or when she read it to Spock and imagined it was them. I forget exactly the wording there. But she points out all the important times in her life and said, I was there for you. Now, as someone who lost their father at 14 years old, that speaks to me on a different level too, because as far as Michael was concerned, her mother was dead. Mm-hmm. And her mother, for all intents and purposes, is dead. Mm-hmm. But they're never really gone. She's telling her, I was there for you for every big moment. You might not have seen me, you might not have felt me, but I was there. And that's an important thing for someone who has lost a loved one, a family member, a father, a mother, early on in life, to learn, well, I don't see them, but they're here. They're always there. They were there. My dad was there the day I graduated high school, the day I went to college, the day I got married, the day I got into the union, the day I got my A card, and the day my son was born, the day my daughter. He might not physically be there, but they're there. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's a part of the story that I think is somewhat missed by some people, and I'm glad for that because they didn't live my experience. But for someone like me, it's something that it does come up a lot in my thought.
Wow. Yeah, I did miss that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Well, one last thing, we can't go without talking about Pike because Anson Mount is amazing.
And we're almost done with them.
Oh, I know.
But I got some good news. Wait, before you go into the sad part, we are getting Klingons again next week.
Oh, yes, finally.
So you'll be happy, Brandon will be miserable, I'll be great.
Yes. Well, yes. So, yes, with Pike, and Dr. Burnham says, well, soon you'll return to your ship. So just another reminder that we are only getting Pike this season, no more. That's the sad reminder. It stung. Like when she said it, soon you'll return to your ship. I'm like, oh, just stay on Discovery, please.
Yeah. Can't the next 3 seasons just be 4 days? That still qualifies for soon.
Exactly. And I just love his simplistic little metaphors, when he's talking and he's like, so we're playing tug of war with the universe and no doubt lose. I'm like, that's exactly right. We're playing tug of war with the universe. How simpler could it be?
Yep.
It's
he's great. The lines they write for him are great. His character is great. The way he acts the character is great. I know a lot of you people like the way he looks is great. I'm a guy who, whatever. He looks like Pike to me, though. I mean, he definitely looks like Pike.
Fits the character, yep.
But, I'm going to miss him, too, but unfortunately, he is going to leave.
Yeah. And one other thing that I liked about his character was when he was... Dr. Culber was like, okay, Dr. Burnham is awake and she's requesting to see you. And then Michael's like, okay, well, beam on down. No, just Pike only. And then they have this whole debate in the ready room. And again, he's just making the right calls. And I know he's being written that way, but it's just a great captain where he is listening to Michael's evidence and her debate on why she needs to go. And then just being the perfect response of, well, we need to follow her lead. We need to, follow her wishes. This is the best choice. And then to have Spock agree, I just thought was perfect. And her little infamous whisper, please, didn't even persuade him. And I thought that was brilliant.
It was a great scene. And he's right. because the mother at that moment is protecting herself. She doesn't want to see Burnham because she knows she sees her die too often. And so to introduce Burnham into this discussion at that point would not help what they needed to do. I mean, it turns out she kind of slapped Pike in the face anyway when he got down there, but he didn't know that was going to be the outcome when it started. So, because she's like, unless you're going to do it my way and only my way, this conversation's over.
I know.
You're just a ghost. You know,
loved it.
That was in the other order, but you get the point.
Yeah.
About Spock, though, I just want to touch on before we finished. I think the relationship between Spock and Michael, ever since he accepted her apology, is now moving in a really good trajectory, and I like the way they're writing it. That they've become more like brother and sister in this episode than we've seen them before.
Yeah, they seem to be there for each other, you know, especially at the end, and he starts setting up the chessboard.
Yes,
you know,
which is exactly what she did for him.
Exactly.
An episode earlier.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that they're not as combative with each other as they were earlier on. And I know that we don't hear about her again, but I don't care. I didn't want to see them fighting the whole friggin' series.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's what's going to help Spock get to his logicalness that we know him in TOS. This relationship.
Which is cool because now we do get a bridge between the smiling Spock and the Spock we all actually know.
Right.
So.
Yeah. All right, Patrick, give us your final thoughts for this episode now that we've talked about it.
I mean, I covered pretty much everything in the episode. I had a few little issues. I like the episode. I like the episode more after talking about it. I do. I did enjoy it. Like I said from the very beginning, I really liked where the story went. I love the way where they're going with this story, and that they brought in so many things into play, like the sphere data and these nanobots, which don't make much sense to me, but they looked cool. So, the fact that we saw so much character development from Georgiou, because now we know for a fact she loves Michael. Period. How much we saw. I love Dr. Burnham and the actress who plays her. So the more I talked about this episode, the more I found myself enjoying that I've seen this episode twice, and we'll probably watch it again before the next one airs. But so I don't really have much else to say. We kind of covered everything.
Yeah, just in conclusion, I love Sonia Sohn. I loved her from The Wire. Guys, if you haven't seen The Wire, please go check it out. It's brilliant. I loved it.
Especially season 1.
1 and 3 are my favorite.
They are. 2 kind of fell off.
Yeah, 2 fell off. And then 4 was supposed to be about the school system. And as a teacher, I still didn't enjoy it, even though it had a stronger connection to me. But anyways, that's a topic for the Wire podcast.
Which there should be one for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. How can there not be with the number of people podcasting?
That show was great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Don't get me started about the actors in that. Humana. Anyways. No, I really did enjoy this even from the first watch. And I loved how it always tied back to previous episodes that we knew, you know, just from the last week all the way back to episode 3 and Obol for Charon. I loved this. As you know, I had a lot of questions. And so talking about it with you in a safe place, because I know, Patrick, you won't ridicule me, and not too many listeners will, I hope, ridicule me on my questions. But I think it helps me to understand the story better, especially more about Leland, control, and AI. And I didn't even know about that timeline. It didn't click with me that we still are on the same timeline. So that, I think, is going to really help me understand the next 3 episodes, the last 3 episodes of the season. I'm loving all the characters. The story definitely moved along. It felt like the story moved along very seamless. It didn't seem disjointed. The people, it just seemed to make sense in the flow. And I love Georgiou and Tyler and how that's going to play out. It's very sad to see Tyler get injured, but I'm sure Dr. Culber will save him. I just thought about that.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Is he going to save him?
He's so clearly not dead because he was
Right.
on an
Oh,
escape
yeah.
pod, right? So
Exactly.
I mean, even when he got stabbed, I didn't believe he was going to be dead, but we know for a fact that he was on the escape pod.
Yep.
And Colbert just reinstated himself, so
Yep. He took a vow to do no harm and to save life. So, that's going to be interesting next
that's true,
week.
but there has to be another doctor on board. So,
Well, apparently not, because it's always Colbert.
this is giant spaceships, one doctor. It seems to be the only way it happens.
And maybe Schmidgen thought that Tyler's dying scene when he projects Leland, I thought that was a little over the top, but that was just me. I thought it was great. I laughed.
It was just a little, it was.
Yeah.
It was kind of, I mean, like it's the kind of scene you expect to see like on Broadway, you know, where they're trying to be over the top, where the guy's on the floor, like, but it's just,
yeah.
And then for it not to be his death is even worse. Like,
I know, right?
At least if he died right there, you're like, all right, that was his last word.
Yeah. Oh, well, we shouldn't end on that note.
Why?
Mocking him.
It's better than the harsh stuff we were talking about up top.
Oh, and well, it has been fun talking about Perpetual Infinity today, but it isn't the only thing we've been discussing on the network. So here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Literary Treks.
Like you said, some of the recent novels have gone with Commander Una, which is, if I'm remembering correctly, they explain a name she's kind of adopted because she got tired of people just calling her number one or something like that. But it's still referring to this backstory of her being the best of the best, being perfect from Illyria, which is a planet that embraces genetic manipulation, I think, and you know, that sort of thing, and breeding for the absolute best. And she was number one in her generation or something like that.
Melodic Treks.
So, but after I watched Star Trek Voyager, and you know, I was aware of the existence of the mini Moog Voyager. I mean, it didn't take me long to just like, it would be cool one day, like if I could acquire the synth, you know, like the first thing I'd do with it is redo the Star Trek Voyager theme with it. Wouldn't that be fun? You know, the Star Trek Voyager theme performed by the mini Moog Voyager, right?
Warp 5.
So I'm going to go to Sleeping Dogs for my next episode here. Now, at this point in Star Trek, I'm really tired of the Klingons, and I was on my original watch of Enterprise, and I still am. I'm really, really tired of the Klingons, so... Did I say the right episode? Sleeping Dogs, I said, right?
Yes.
You're just looking at me funny here. I'm like, did I say Shadows of Pajama?
No, you said Sleeping Dogs.
Okay, good. So...
The Edge, a Star Trek Discovery podcast.
She is with a fake him, but she even says, well, it's you, but it's really only my memory of you.
Right.
Like, that line is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I'm not the sappiest person on the planet by any stretch of the imagination. Anyone who has heard me talk for months on this network knows that. But this is heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcast. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review.
And listeners, don't forget, we are still having our iTunes giveaway, where we have Captain Pike pins by Fansets donated to us by our wonderful associate producer, Chris Tribuzio. So please leave us a written review and star rating on the iTunes, and your name will be entered into the drawing to receive one of those pins. You have 3 more weeks, and then we will announce the winners. Now, if you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select The Edge. That will come right to Amy. You can also find us on the network at Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So, Amy, where can people reach you when you're not trying to decipher codes from either a million years in the future or a million years in the past?
Well, when I'm not doing that, with the help of my trusted students, you can find me here on the network co-hosting Earl Grey, which is about Star Trek, The Next Generation, one of my favorites. I'm also over on the Fandom podcast on co-hosting Discoville, and that talks about the Orville and Discovery. I am also on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place is right there in the Babel Conference. So, Patrick, where can people reach you when you're not moving sphere data files?
Well, when I'm not moving sphere data files, I can be found sharing them on Twitter at MagicDrop5. There's no spaces. The 5 is a digit, not letters. You can also find me popping in on the Babel Conference from time to time when I get a break from figuring out what data I'm going to save and which ones I'm going to get rid of. And you can find me over on Warp 5 with my buddy Brandon, coming to you every other week. We're going to have some really good topics and maybe some interviews coming up, so keep an eye out there.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more available through our special patrons website, The Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
We'd also like to thank our largest files that we've held on to in that 46%, our associate producers. They are Norman C. Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoeb Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, Cornelia Reutner, Ryan Millette, Chris Tribuzio, Brian Malash. Thank you for supporting Trek FM and The Edge.
Thank you for listening, and join us next time to see what's happening on the edge of Federation space.